Thank you so much, Marcelo. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to Joaquin, to Marcelo, to Sister Helen, to all the colleagues. I am delighted to share with you some thoughts that are based in my latest report for UNDP, Atlas for Artificial Intelligence for Human Development. And I would like to start by sharing this image that has to do with the famous work of Bigher and company, which studied the history of the bicycle as a technological artifact and its different historical and social applications. In the beginning, with this enormous front wheel, it sought speed but lost safety. Then it evolves with a smaller front wheel and ensuring balance. My question here is, what balance are we looking for today with technological change? Will we continue to reach an arms race towards AGI, increasing the front wheel of the bicycle in this metaphor? Or will we manage to balance AI development that allows us to balance the two wheels and integrate the work of teachers, students, and researchers with technological improvement and responsible climate action? It's in its challenge to find a meaning in the use of technology we could call for not merely an ecological conversion, but also a digital conversion. In words of Pope Francis, restore the various levels of ecological balance: internal balance with oneself, solidarity with others, natural balance with all living beings, and spiritual balance with God. Without this basic balance, we fall off the bike. The first problem, wars. The arms race has moved into the field of artificial intelligence. In 1945, we have never had so many armed conflicts. The number of internationalized interstate conflicts has increased by 175% since 2010. Because of this, it's so important to listen to the voice of Leo XIV. May the voice of arms be silenced and the voice of brotherhood be raised. As the Nobel Prize of 2014 has emphasized, without only 4.4% of last year's global defense spending, it would have been possible to cover the annual financial gap for follow and lower middle income countries to achieve universal basic education by 2013. That's a moral call for all of us. And we have to stress that since 2015, when the SDGs 4, that has to do with education, was set out, launches, the number of set out school students have reduced by less than 1%. So we are very far away of reaching the goals of the 2030 agenda. 1 in 10 children is not in school because they are working. Around the world, some 160 million children work to earn a living instead of going to school. We also have, especially in Latin America, a digital lack of digital breadth that affects the whole education system in terms of internet access, much lower in rural areas and in poorer populations, and a lack of training for teachers in the use of digital tools. There is another war, which is the cognitive war. The OECD, in this chart we can look at this, conducted the Truth Quest survey in 21 countries to measure the ability of audience to identify false or misleading content online. Nordic countries such as Finland and Norway had the highest scores in the ability to correctly identify false and misleading content, while Brazil and Colombia had some of the lowest scores. the overall performance score was 61% effectiveness for detecting false or misleading content. Is a very low score. We also have a policy depth, a polydepth of AI models, the data polydepth of AI models. Many of you have mentioned the problem of data. I have analyzed in my report the many aspects of this depth that has to do with technical aspects, but also with ethical aspect of how we fit the global machine of artificial intelligence. It's important to highlight that the data often come from the global north, reproducing a colonialistic logic. It does not reflect social diversity, nor the diversity of nature in our countries. Data also reflect their ecological footprints, and green algorithms with sustainable energy consumption should be addressed on this regard. Recently, tools have been developed to measure and estimate the carbon footprint of algorithms, such as Initiative Code Carbon, Carbon Tracker, Green Algorithms, and MLCO2 impact. Another aspect that I would like to highlight in the same direction that many of you have mentioned is the importance of global trade agreements and indigenous data sovereignty. The global movement that seeks to defend the right of indigenous people to govern the creation, collection, ownership, and application of their data is closely related to the discussion of new global trade agreements and digital exchange. In Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and the United States, for example, the importance of strengthening autonomy and resource management with these local communities is very important, and also in Chile and Singapore. Let me mention another important aspect of this data for good is the Protein Data Bank. Has open access principle. It currently houses the structure of more than 200,000 proteins freely available to anyone wishing to access them. So the aspect of AI for biotech, for bioengineer is also very important. Of course, has also risks that needs to be addressed. A new literacy for Generation Z. It is very different from what was 10 years ago. It's completely different. Let me share with you a personal image that I taken last Sunday is San Agustin Church in San Agustin Church in Washington. Is Jesus teaching the elders in the temple. Beyond any exaggerated comparison, a metaphor came to my mind with what is happening today in the world of education. We have to listen to the younger generation. We have to learn from them, and we have to know how to guide them wisely. The intergenerational bridge, which is becoming increasingly narrower in terms of age difference, is indispensable. Students are ahead of their teachers in the use of digital tools. Generation Z is the Amazon of humanity. Teachers are the gardeners of that forest. Public authorities are the great park rangers, and technologists are the ones who can contribute innovation for its preservation. Of course, we need an urgent retraining of teachers. This table shows the importance and the priority that Latin America has on this regard. Also, there is a different range of opinions about if AI will be deepening or will be closing the inequality gap. And also is a lack of appropriate skills in the labor market that has to do mainly with technical and cognitive skill, not merely soft skills. The main message here is AI for social justice is not should be in automatic pilot. We need active decisions on this regard. Has to do with open access to code, has to do with the training of the teachers, and has to do with small and medium enterprise. We have a subprime attention crisis. We have an algo pandemic gambling is infecting all the political system. The gambling apparatus is financing the political sector in many of our countries. That is impeding a correct regulation of this. And we have, of course, to create not merely information, but habit for social transformation. We have to use the tools of behavioral economic without affecting the what I call hyper-nudge behavioral economic. I will take Marcelo just one more minute. The guillotine is coming. Mendoza, Ecuador, and Mexico, Uruguay had a marvelous experience of using AI in terms of education. We have to consider that the CRISPR is affecting the local knowledge, but also is influencing the global market in the food security. We have to keep in mind the warnings of the community, of the scientific community on this regard. We have to do license with good behavior clauses of AI. We have to consider artificial wisdom. And the last, I will take just the last minute to mention this topic that, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, is very important. Let mention, Marcelo, the following. I have the privilege that attend with Marcelo Sanchez Orondo the ceremony when Pope Francis launched the addressed the American Congress and the United Nations 2 years ago when they launched the 2030 agenda. Pope Francis mentioned just one woman in his address before the American Congress. Is Dorothy Day, the hero of social workers here in United States. History brought Dorothy Day and St. Paul VI together on October 1967 when he gave her communion at the Third World Congress for the Lay Apostolate. On that date, also take communion for the St. Paul VI, James McDivitt, one of the pioneers of the Apollo program, who later reached the moon. This image of the three, Paul VI, Dorothy Day, and McDivitt, is an inspiration for the present times, which require a great balance to apply technology in all peripheries. On the one hand, a fighter for social rights in the most humble places on the planet. On the other, the astronaut who first walked in space, seeking to reach the moon. And at the center of balance, St. Paul VI, with the Eucharist as a great strength to illuminate technological change with an humanistic meaning. It's not a coincidence that his words were quoted by Pope Francis at the end of his speech on the United Nations a decade ago. For finishing, this is the quotation of Pope Francis in that ceremony that are plenty of an actual. The danger does not come from progress or science, which properly can solve many of the serious problems afflicting humanity. The real danger lies in man and women who has increasingly powerful tools at his disposal, capable of leading both to ruin and to the highest achievements.